conversations on making elections make sense in the COVID-19 era, with a focus on Zambia, the elections that happened in August. And we ask ourselves, what are the lessons for the political parties? So today's focus is on the political parties' perspective on what we can draw from the Zambian elections. Zimbabwe is preparing to hold elections in 2023, and there are key issues that we need to learn from the previous 2018 elections and the recent Zambia elections that could strengthen future elections. We have outstanding electoral reforms and implementation of recommendations from previous observer mission reports, and these have the potential to make for less contested electoral results. The history of disputed elections continues to haunt our electoral space, and it is imperative for our electoral management body, the political parties, civil society organizations, to work together to facilitate an enabling electoral environment where the right to vote is protected and respected. In light of this, we are holding a meeting today, which has been convened by the Zimbabwe Election Support Network, the Public Policy Research Institute of Zimbabwe, and the Center for Innovation and Technology, where we intend to draw lessons from past elections and indeed the recent Zambian elections. It is important for us to view this platform as a critical arena in which we shape the future of elections in our country. While political parties may exist to conquer and retain power during political contestations, elections are an opportunity for Zimbabweans to exercise their right to choose their representatives, and political parties must act responsibly in order to safeguard this inalienable right. With these conversations, we seek to contribute to the deepening and strengthening of our democracy, because we all aspire towards a democratic and prosperous Zimbabwe. Let me welcome you again. And I will now introduce our panelists. We will have Dr. Cosmos Musumali, representing PF Zambia. He is the General Secretary of the Patriotic Front from Zambia. We will have Madam Elizabeth Chitika. She is from the Movement for Multi-Party Democracy, MMD, in Zambia. She's a former MP and a former Deputy Minister of Sport, Youth and Child Development. She was elected to be Chief Whip for the opposition party and has served as President of the Southern Africa Parliament. Third, we have Professor Love Momadugu from the National Constitutional Assembly. He is the President. Fourth, we have Honorable Mpariwa from the MDC team. She's a founding member of the MDC, a veteran trade unionist, and a gender activist. She is a member of Parliament. We have fifth, this is not in order, this we have Honorable Paul Mangwana. He is the National Secretary for Legal Rights for ZANU-PF. And Honorable Mangwana has held positions as Deputy Minister in various portfolios and a minister also in various portfolios. He has been co-chairperson of the Parliament Select Committee, which ushered in the new constitution that Zimbabwe proudly boasts of. Honorable Mangwana has been a member of the Pan-African Parliament and a member of the African, Caribbean, Pacific, European Parliament as head of the delegation from Zimbabwe. And he has been the Zimbabwe representative at the United Nations Socio-Economic Committee, among other positions that he has held. Sixth, we have Dr. Strike Mkandla. He's representing ZAPU. Dr. Strike Mkandla is the current Secretary General of ZAPU since this 2016 Congress. He has worked for UNEP from 2002, becoming the representative to the AU till 2010 when he retired. Dr. Strike Mkandla has held various positions within ZAPU, and he worked with the late ZAPU president, Dr. Dumiso Dabengwa, to unite the political parties from the period 2011 to 2019. Our seventh panelist is Dr. Maxwell Schumbach Rusike, a founding and current president of the Zimbabwe People First, Zim First political party. He's a scientist, researcher, and educator. He's also a founding member of the MDC, later MDCT, and has served in various capacities within the party, including being the chief political strategist to the late MDC president, Mr. Morgan Tsvangirai. So we have our panelists who have already joined us and are eager to start sharing with us on the conversations that we have for today. And to kickstart our program, I will ask Honorable Mangwana to speak to us on the issue of the political parties' code of conduct. In 2018, the political parties signed a code of conduct to govern how political parties will behave during the elections. And as we prepare for 2023, the conversations on electoral reforms have flagged the issue of the code of conduct and how this needs to be made enforceable so that the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission can be able to sanction those parties or candidates who stray from the principles that are outlined in the Code of Conduct. As we refer to Zambia, we are aware that the Electoral Commission of Zambia has power to be able to sanction or to ban political parties or candidates who participate in violence or spurn hate speech. For example, in Lusaka, the Electoral Commission of Zambia banned both the PF party and the United Party for National Development from campaigning in Bulungu, Namwala, and Nakonde because of the violence among the supporters, the tearing of banners, and the death of 2 party members. So we would like to hear from you how, as we go towards 2023, this code of conduct can be made enforceable and what political parties can do as they work towards creating a violence-free electoral environment. Over to you, Honorable Mangwana. Sorry, Honorable Mangwana, you're on mute.
Hello?
Thank you. You may go ahead.
Thank you. When we held our last elections, the political parties negotiated a voluntary code of conduct through the intervention of a local civic society organization called Zimbabwe Institute. This code of conduct was an arrangement entered into by the political parties. It was not legislated, it had no force of law. So it was more like an informal arrangement by the political parties. There was no any penal provisions as to what would happen in the event of a party violating that code of conduct. So in order for us to strengthen our democratic space, it may be necessary to legislate this code of conduct so that it has the force of law. It must have some sanctions to say what would then happen in the event of a political party or a candidate violating the code of conduct. So I think the lesson to learn is that in Zimbabwe, we need to legislate and have the code of conduct have the force of law. That's basically what I would say.
Thank you, Honorable Mangwana. So as we work towards the 2023 elections, we are working towards an enforceable.
In fact, let me just say, conversations have started happening. There is a program being initiated by a civic society organization called Zimbabwe Institute. In our last meeting, one of the items we discussed was how to enforce this code of conduct, how to ensure that the code of conduct governing political parties has the force of law, so that if a party violates, or a party or a candidate violates the code of conduct, there can be sanctions which can be put on it.
Thank you for that. So this meeting is timely in that we are already moving towards that direction, where are willing to be bound and commit themselves to a higher standard as we go towards the elections. Thank you for that. And then to Dr. Strike Nkandla, your question relates to the issue of political party agents. The deployment of political party agents in polling stations is important for political parties to be able to document the process as it happens and participate in the results management chain. In Zambia, political parties deployed polling agents in almost 12,152 polling stations and could therefore track the results from the polling stations to the constituency to when they were announced. For Zimbabwe, lessons from 2018 and the elusive V11 show us that that process was done, but there were some shortfalls in terms of how the parties are participating in the results management chain. How can Zimbabwean parties strengthen the deployment of polling agents, and how will this contribute to enhancing the results management system? Dr. Nkandla. Yes. While Dr. Mkandla is sorting out the gadgets so that he can be able to come and respond, any of the panelists who want to take on the question, we are open to that. Do political parties have a role to play in results management? And what kind of role do we envisage if they partner the electoral management body in this process? Thank you.
Yeah. Can I come in?
Yes, please go ahead, Dr. Max.
Yeah, sure. Yes. When it comes to polling agents, I think us as opposition, we have to be honest with ourselves, where we fall short, and also be frank with the ruling party, where they are a problem. So there are two issues involved here. The first is some provinces, people are intimidated. People are afraid, especially the province of Marsh Central and Marsh West. So opposition find it difficult to find people who publicly declare their affiliation with the opposition, because either it's violence or they are denied inputs. So this is for ZANU-PF, especially. I'm glad Mr. Mangwana is here, and I think his opening statement was in the right direction. So hopefully, if he listens to our concerns, instead of pushing back, he will sit down with his colleagues and try to address that. The issue of no-go areas, it's latent. It's there, it exists. Tactics are different. Inputs are used to intimidate the opposition. So now, on the opposition, us, we really need to do a better job in ensuring we educate the electorate what's involved here, what's at stake. Because some people join opposition parties as an opportunity to enrich themselves. So they've put forward the need to be paid, and as such, opposition sometimes is not well funded. They find it difficult to fund all the agents. Whereas I was in Zambia. What I learned in Zambia is the opposition, UPND, sold a message. Bali will fix it. Things were not going right for many. And I was on the ground, I spoke with many people who were so excited with the results. And they all said, Bali will fix it. They didn't talk about being paid. So in a nutshell, we as opposition, we have to sell the problems of Zimbabwe and position ourselves as the solution givers. And as ZANU-PF, just in summary, it has to revisit its policy of using intimidatory tactics, using inputs to ensure that there are no-go areas. The concept of KIPS, which Ian Smith introduced, it's being done in a different way. People are in information KIPS, where if you try to go, you are told, no, you can't talk about opposition here. And we face that reality. So I think he heard what I said, and hopefully we have a constructive discussion with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Schumbach. I see Dr. Strike Gandla has managed to sort out his connection. You can have a take before I take another panelist on the issue.
Hello. I just want to register my presence.
Thank you, Madam Chitika. You're welcome. Thank you. Dr. Strike, you can proceed. Okay. Please alert me when you are ready to take your point once you are able to connect. Honorable Mangwana?
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. You can proceed.
You want me to respond?
If you have anything to add on the issue, not necessarily a response to Dr. Schumbach, but if you have anything to add on the question, yes.
Yes, I'm sure. I just wanted to remind Dr. Schumbach to separate the elections, the electoral system since the coming into office of the new dispensation. I'm quite sure that the remarks he has made may not relate to the last election, the 2018 election. I did not hear any of the issues he has raised as complaints which were raised by the opposition. The electoral environment was completely different in the last election. Even the opposition did not raise the issues which he is raising. No one was intimidated. The people were not forced much to vote for a particular political party. Every political party campaigned freely. And even when one looks at the petitions which were filed in court, all the issues he has raised were not raised by the opposition. The electoral system right now, ZANPF did not intimidate anyone, and I think people voted freely and voluntarily.
Thank you, Mangwana. And in the spirit of the code of conduct that you spoke to as well, that the parties are working towards, these are some of the issues that will be addressed.
These are issues which will be contained in that code of conduct, and we are all saying we need a justiciable code of conduct, a code of conduct which can be enforced through the force of law. And we think that the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission must play a role in enforcing the code of conduct. The current situation is that it's voluntary. It's up to the political, it's more like a gentleman's agreement. It's up to the political parties to say, do they want to comply or they do not want to comply? There are no sanctions. And what we think we need is an enforceable code of conduct. And ZEC should play a role in ensuring that the political parties are adhering to that code of conduct.
Thank you, Honorable Mangwana, for that response. Thank you, Dr. Schumbach, for your input. At this point, I would like to go to Zambia. Welcome, Madam Elizabeth Chitika, representing the MMD Zambia. Thank you for taking time to share with us lessons from the recent elections. So our question is, what happened in Zambia and what are we going to be learning? How did the political parties engage with the Electoral Commission of Zambia to create an enabling environment for free and fair elections? And how was the code of conduct discharged by the Electoral Commission of Zambia? And as you respond to this, we'll ask more questions. Madam Chitika, thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you. Are you able to hear me? Hello?
Hello, we can hear you. You can go ahead, madam. Thank you.
Hello. Okay, are you able to hear me? Okay. First of all, I'm Elizabeth Chitika. I'm the National Secretary for the Movement for Multi-Party Democracy, one of the former ruling parties in Zambia. The party that brought multi-party democracy from a one-party state and ruled Zambia for 20 years. We left power in 2011 after losing to the Patriotic Front, the past former ruling party. I thought that it is important for the panel to know this detail because we are coming from a ruling party and we have also experienced opposition political, party activities in terms, for 10 years now. Before I even get to really engage, I wanted to just give this statement. I'm sure that's where, your question may emanate from. And I would like to say that the subject under discussion is very important, and there are many lessons that the Zimbabwean political parties. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we are following you.
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you. You can proceed.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, what I was saying is that the subject under discussion is very, very important, and there are many lessons that the Zimbabwean political parties can learn from Zambia's recent experiences, arising from the just ended general elections. But before I say that, I would like to thank the organizers for this meeting, for having considered our political party through my participation, on this important discussion. It is an honor which we don't take for
Hello. I think
we have lost it.
We have lost her. Yes, we seem to have a challenge. Dr. Strike Nkandla, we had a question directed to you earlier on. While we wait for Madam Elizabeth to rejoin.
It looks like we are having challenges in the network. Hello.
Yes. Hello, you can
Yes.
proceed, Madam.
Yes, yeah. So what I was saying is that it is through such important meetings that political parties can learn best practices that can help the sub-region and ultimately deal with bottlenecks that have potential to bring conflict in our various nations. Panelists, what is critical in an election is to deal with the process, that gets us to an election day. Rigging or a free election is as a result of, a transparent, a stakeholder involvement and dialogue in the process that lead to an election. That can be said to be credible or not credible. Most times, the citizenry of our countries find it very difficult to believe us as political parties after the elections, when political parties start to complain and petitions follow. Questions that they normally, ask range from, why did you participate?
Okay, Madam Chitika will rejoin. I think she's having challenges. Dr. Strike Nkandla, you want to take on the question before we move on to the other. I think he's still having challenges. Honorable Mpariwa, you had your hand up.
Hello. Maybe I can conclude on one. Hello, this is Zambia again. We have I'm saying this is Zambia again. We have a challenge in the network. Can I proceed?
You can proceed now. We can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, you can proceed, madam. We can hear you.
Okay. So what I was saying, Belinda, is that our people find it very difficult, to believe us, especially after the elections when political parties start. The questions they ask range from why did you participate in an election which you knew from the beginning was a fraud? What is critical, therefore, is the process. And I'm sure the Zimbabweans are listening. Yes.
Madam, I would like to request to take other speakers and maybe ask you to log out and rejoin. Maybe the network will be better when you come back on. Okay. Thank you. You will alert us when you are back on, then you can continue from where you were. Honorable Mpariwa, you had your hand up. You wanted to speak on the issue. I think it was on the deployment of polling agents. And then when you respond to that, I will then ask my question to you. You are welcome to take the floor. Honorable Mpariwa. Okay. While Honorable Mpariwa is coming to the floor, I will ask a question directed to Dr. Maxwell Schumbach. We have more than 40 parliamentary seats and 80 council seats that remain vacant after the recalls that we had last year. Section 158.2 of the Constitution provides that a by-election should be held within 90 days of the occurrence of the vacancy, whether in Parliament or in local authorities. However, this has not happened. According to the Election Resource Center, who were observing the Zambian polls, the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission can take a leaf and learn from the ECZ on their approach and how to allow people to exercise their right to vote in the midst of the COVID-19 era. The ERC highlights the African Union Observer Mission report to Zambia, the preliminary report, which commended Zambia for putting in place measures that enabled elections to take place despite the COVID-19 threat. So the report quotes, the COVID-19 pandemic was a key challenge to the electoral processes. However, the mission notes that the ECZ and other stakeholders put in place preventive measures to ensure that Zambians participate safely in the process. So the elections were held in Zambia, despite that at the time of the election, Zambia had vaccinated less than 2% of their population. 307,000 people had received their first dose, 210,975 had received their second dose by the time of going to the polls. And other measures were put in place, and political parties used innovative digital platforms to enhance their campaigns. What are the lessons for Zimbabwe? Should ZEC continue to postpone the by-elections? And how can political parties working with ZEC create a safe campaigning and voting environment in this COVID era?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you. And I think we need to really understand that. Oh, okay. Yeah. Honorable Mpariwa, do you have floor or I have? Hello?
Sorry, I think you have the floor, Doc.
Oh, thank you so much, Honorable. Yeah, I was saying holding elections, the conduct of the elections, which involves the process, are very important as a premise for economic development, because they create an environment of stability which inspires future developments. So the moment we tamper with the processes, we need to know that we are hindering our progress. So we are aware of the COVID situation, but there are other things we are doing in the country despite the COVID situation. So I don't know what excuse the authorities who are responsible for running these elections are giving. Elections can be held. Zambia has shown us they held national elections, as you rightly say, during a pandemic. And those 40 seats, which are vacant, people require representation. Elections should be held. Let a winner come out. And then it inspires even people who are outside politics when they see a process which involves all political parties coming together and agreeing on one single winner. That's the most important thing. When a winner is declared and the loser accepts, and the process when it's judged free and fair. Of course, free and fair sometimes is subjective, but there should be a general consensus that the elections have been held within the expected norms, the principles set out. So I think the current government has an obligation to explain to the people that despite COVID, what else are they holding these 40 seats vacant? It's very important that they ensure that the Zimbabwean people and the outside world, they see that elections are the basis for everything we do, including economic development. That's my point. Elections, by-elections should be held, and those who want to participate can participate. Our party feels we will participate in the national elections, but we are not going to say don't hold by-elections. Let those who want to participate, because I've heard on social media that other parties are keen to participate. We are in the modern era. There's digital platforms where people can campaign. People are moving around, and in Zambia, everyone was masking. People in Zimbabwe are being asked to mask. They can mask. And they participate in elections. I think that's my point. We should see democracy move forward, especially as we go to 2023. We should not go into the elections with suspicions, because perceptions are reality. If people feel they are being denied by elections, they will think they will be denied free and fair elections in 2023. So there's work for you, Ms. Mangwana.
Thank you, Dr. Schumbach. There is work for all the political parties as we work towards creating an environment that is conducive to the conduct of free and fair elections, because COVID is not going away. Come 2023, it may still be here. We may still need to mask up. So how long can we keep postponing our lives when the rest of the world is moving on? And indeed, we're going back. We've reduced lockdown to level 2. So life is moving on. And Dr. Schumbach says maybe ZEC needs to reconsider and see how we can conduct these by-elections in a safe environment. Honorable Chitika is back. As you respond, also kindly share with us, taking off from where you left, share with us how you were able to do these elections in the context of COVID. How were parties campaigning? How was the internet, access to media, state broadcaster, independent broadcasters? Because these are some of the platforms where the political parties may need to resort because of the COVID-19 restrictions. Honorable Mpare, I'll come back to you before we lose Honorable Chitika from Zambia because of a network. Please allow me to give you the opportunity. You're welcome. Madam, please unmute yourself.
Hello.
We can hear you now. You can proceed. Thank you.
How did we participate in the last elections due to the COVID-19, restrictions? Belinda, I would like to confirm that it was a very, very difficult, campaign, and the only political party that had, access to campaign properly during the just ended elections were the ruling party. Because it looked like they were the only ones that were, excused from those, restrictions. And, they used, inspection of government projects as, to disguise their campaign, process. So it was very difficult for us to campaign during the COVID-19 elections and COVID-19. Restrictions. And you would ask me, but how did the Zambian people manage to vote en masse like that, even when we did not campaign as opposition political? What I would want to tell the panel is that, in my opinion, I feel that the last election would have been a very difficult election, and it could have brought another result, except that the Zambian people had decided, I think they had reached a limit, they had gone to their max on what they could take in. So it was a referendum, so they decided to do what they did in the last elections, but not that we really campaigned as opposition. And then in terms of access to media, it was very difficult, Belinda, that we could not access the public media, both electronic media as well as the print media. And when we were allowed to buy space, adverts for us to campaign, it was very expensive, and most of the political parties could not afford the rates at which these political campaigns were pegged at. So it was a very difficult situation. And I only hope that our friends in Zim will be able to campaign, when the situation has really improved in terms of the COVID-19. I think that's what I can say for now.
Thank you, Madam Honorable Chitika, for sharing with us some of the lessons. And we are indeed learning and seeing how we can also enhance our own systems so that they can be responsive to the changing political, environmental, and technological environments, because we are also moving in the fourth industrial revolution, and we need to be seen to adapt to what the world requires of us. Honorable Mpariwa, I will give the floor to you. I had asked you to come because you had raised your hand, I think, at the time when I had asked on the question of the polling agents. Yeah, when you finish responding, I will ask you your question. Thank you. You're welcome.
Yes, thank you very much. And let me begin by congratulating Zambia, my colleague Chitika, whom I've worked with during the Pan-African Parliament. for a smooth election that took place in Zambia. And a very good afternoon to all colleagues on the platform. But perhaps really because as political animals, as political parties, yes, we need strong institutions in terms of handling the component of polling agents, because without polling agents, you'd find that you will lose it before you even begin. So there is need for resource mobilization in terms of funding our own election agents. Two, there is need for a leveled playing field where anyone who goes on behalf of party so say or party C is safe enough to reach out to the zones. I'm not saying that some of the parts of the country may not be safe for others, but you know, we term other zones for part this, for part that. But I think we need enabling environment that allows everyone to move freely. Even if you deploy a polling agent without any further follow-up, they will be able actually to safeguard the results of the vote in an honest way, where those polling agents from any political party begin to talk each other and they team up to protect what they have, whether one is won, whether one is lost, or it's whether it's your stronghold or your weakest area. We should be able to be bound by the spirit of being people that come from Zimbabwe, not from political parties. In what am I saying here? We need unity. We need people who dialogue. We need people who actually, we need to preach peace so that anyone who goes around the country safeguarding the vote is safe enough or confident enough that nothing will then take place in terms of their security. And we need to improve. And I want to thank Honorable Mangwana for actually bringing in the issue of where we need the political code of conduct, which was signed in 2018, to be more binding. Yes, and the earlier it comes to Parliament, so that it has some punitive actions around those who commit offences against the pact of the political code, then the better for everyone else. I will stop there for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mpariwa. Indeed, we need the strong institutions that can be able to carry the political parties, and you emphasize on the need for resource mobilization and safety and leveling of the playing field. My question to you, I'll put you back on the spot. The delimitation of boundaries is set for next year, October to December 2022. The Zimbabwe Election Support Network has raised concerns that this process may eventually become an academic process if it is completed less than 6 months from the elections, because the law says if it's done less than 6 months, then the the constituencies that are delimited in that particular process will not be used in the 2023 elections. So civil society has therefore been calling on government to bring forward the census, which is June next year, so that consequently the delimitation exercise can also start earlier. And then there's adequate time for planning and engagement with the electoral stakeholders. Apart from this, the delimitation will also be based on the numbers of registered voters. What are the political parties doing, or what can they do to encourage citizens to register to vote? We have had concerns that there is a risk that some constituencies may actually be lost because of fewer voters being registered in certain areas. What can the political parties do to appeal to more voters to register? And what can be done to reduce the hurdles that hinder people from registering as voters? And if you want to draw from parallels in Zambia, please go ahead. You can go ahead and do that. Madam,
thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. And I think you know very well that without constituencies or without proper boundaries, you will not be able to field candidates because they won't be any need to actually divide members of parliament into constituencies. Therefore, delimitations or constituencies actually mark as to where you can then place individuals from different political parties. That's number one. Number two, you know that I would draw from the Zambian experience that civil society played a key role in the Zambian election in terms of information dissemination, peace building processes, so that communities would actually appreciate, go and vote, but not for who, but actually just to say it is their right, including the youth and the women. Number two, you will find that you need to have dialogue across political parties, that we need to agree in terms of boundaries. Number three is that delimitation has to be done within the confinements of the law. So if the law says 6 months or say 10 months or so, we need to follow the rules of the law, because if we begin on a wrong footnote, then the worst becomes even the result of our delimitation process. So we need dialogue amongst political parties so that we do agree that the wrong that we see is agreed upon all political parties, including the ruling party. And as brothers and sisters, before we go for elections, we are brothers and sisters. We are Zimbabweans. We are all politicians, and we need to guide the communities that we mobilize to go and register to vote. Number four is we need to send information to communities, to our structures and political parties, that there is a need for them to go and register to vote, especially the women, especially the youth, and also people with disabilities. Because when it comes to go for elections or any process that involves elections, we may forget that people with disabilities also deserve a right to be heard, and also a right for representation, even a right for them to choose their own, to go and vote for themselves. The next one is on what I've mentioned is dialogue. The dialogue can actually reach out to everyone that is involved even in the planning process. By this, I also mean even the ZEC itself, Zimbabwe Electoral Commission itself. There is need for dialogue, even amongst themselves. That's number one, with the ministry that is responsible for elections, and the other ministries that are also relevant stakeholders. But more important, civil society can actually educate the communities in terms of going to register and vote. But the final one, the more important one, you know that the world has become a teaspoon through digitalization, ICT communication. There can be a request, and we need to request that we need online voter registration. At the click of a button, you register where you come from, your ID, first name, and the constituency where you are resident. And by this, then it becomes easy, and it saves money. And it's so simple to the youth. It's so simple to people who are far away from where they can actually go and register to vote. More importantly, even when they go to check on whether they are on the voters roll. At the click of a button, you should be able to search on whether you are a registered voter as per your request, where you want to be registered in. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mpariwa, for giving us those pointers on how political parties and civil society, ZEC, can work together towards mobilizing people to vote. So I will give an opportunity to other panelists who want to come in on the same point. You spoke also on the issue of delimitation. It's important for it to be done within the confines of the law so that it is useful for the 2023 elections. Otherwise, if it becomes an academic process and is not useful for these coming elections, then it will be a waste of time and resources. Yes, Honorable Mangwana.
On delimitation, The problem we have in Zimbabwe is to think that elections are won or lost on the day of voting. I think the commencement of an election is with delimitation. If we do not achieve fairness at the time of delimitation, then we will not be able to have a fair election. If one considers a raw constituency, which has a radius of more than 40 kilometers, and you compare that with an urban constituency like Mbare, for example, then you give the same right of voting to a person who stays in Mbare, which is densely populated, and a person who stays in Mzarabani. You will be unfair to the rural voter. So delimitation is very critical. Even the current rules on which we divide our constituencies, are they fair? And I am appealing to the political parties as we engage that we separate rural constituencies from urban constituencies. Urban constituencies are densely populated. It is easier for the member of parliament to move around the constituents and hear the views and wishes of his constituents, as opposed to the rural constituencies where someone has to travel probably a radius of more than 50 kilometers. So we need to be very careful about whether we are achieving democracy by, right now the differentiation is only 20% of the registered voters. In other words, the difference between an urban constituency and the rural constituency is 20% of the registered voters. Is that rule scientific? Is that rule fair? Does that rule achieve representative democracy? Or we need to revisit such rules? And it's one of those issues I raised in the inter-party dialogue to say, as political parties, can we look at this? Do we achieve democracy in the manner in which rural constituencies are represented and in the manner in which urban constituencies are represented? So the issue of delimitation is very key and critical to achieving democracy in the electoral system.
Thank you, Honorable Mangwana, and thank you for the questions that you raised, which I'll ask the other panelists to ponder on, and we begin to have conversations about that. Are we achieving representative democracy? Asks Honorable Mangwana, are we being fair? And he makes a very important point that elections are actually not going to be won in 2023. They will start, they are being won now as we are talking on this platform. And next year, when delimitation happens, the framework for who will win is being put in place, hence the importance of delimitation in the electoral process, and then hence the importance of this conversation about how delimitation will be done as we plan and move towards the 2023 elections. Any panelists who also want to weigh in? Please unmute your mic to give me an indication if you would like to speak, or raise your hand. Thank you. I will ask further questions around the issue of encouraging people to vote. In the 2018 elections, we had a process of trying to minimize the hindrances or the hurdles or the limitations to the voter registration process. And we introduced a system where the intending voter or the aspiring voter could produce an affidavit, either from their church or from their village head or their local leader, to confirm where they stay, or from their landlord, so that they can be registered to vote in a particular area. As we go towards the 2023 elections, will this still be in place, and what else can we do to try and make it less burdensome for the voter to go and vote? We have many new virgin voters who do not own properties, young people who do not have proof of residence besides staying with their parents, what can the political parties advocate for towards enhancing this process of voter registration? The figures as they come in show that there is a poor uptake, but we want to enhance and make sure that we have an increase in people coming in to register to vote, so that when we go for our delimitation and when we go for the elections, people can fully exercise their rights to vote. This is an open question to any panelists who want to come in and take it up. Thank you.
Yeah, can I come in?
Yes, Dr. Schumbach, I will give you the...
Yeah, sure, thank you. Yeah, I think when it comes to motivating people to register, it's a collective effort. And the people themselves are recipient of information, whoever is giving. But when they suspect that they are being denied information, then they see everything suspiciously. The state broadcaster has a role to play. We saw that in Zambia. The Zambia National Broadcasting Corporation covered the ruling party. Same thing in Zimbabwe. People can be motivated to register if both the officials from the ruling party and officials from the opposition are given an opportunity to speak through the national broadcaster. Then people will see, okay, I think things have changed. And as long as we don't change and we have media reforms, we continue to see the state broadcaster beating the drums for the ruling party and denying opposition. People still hold our elections suspiciously. We saw that in Zambia. I was following, and people would say, I've never listened to this radio station because it never covered us. And when things changed, they struggled to change themselves because all of a sudden, the ruling party was in the opposition. We see that in Zimbabwe. ZBC does not accord us an opportunity to speak to the electoral. That's the primary vehicle for us to reach electoral. We have to find other means. And if we leave it to one political party to deliver the message on voting, when we are supposed to use all media outlets available, the process becomes already mired in suspicion. We have to have media reforms. We need to be on ZBC telling Zimbabweans that it's important to register to vote. Even without campaigning, just telling Zimbabweans to register to vote, they will get inspired. Say, oh, did you see Dr. Schumbach is from the opposition and is on national TV? And as long as we are denied, it's a farce. People are saying there is no use to register to vote because there's no use to vote because elections are always rigged. How do we remove those perceptions? It starts by making that the process is fair. Information dissemination is fair. We might have Mr. Mangwana here saying all the right things, but on the ground, they deploy people who do otherwise. They deploy people who, I want to be very specific. If an opposition member comes with a project, like drilling a borehole in the village, the village head is called to the PPRIZ, Police Internal Security Investigation Service. But they say, oh, who is doing this? Why are you allowing this? So it's latent. You might not see the physical violence, but the intimidation is latent. They see it. It's there on the state broadcaster, where everything is favorable for the ruling party, and everything negative is assigned to the opposition. That's where we need reforms. We might go into 2023 elections, but without those reforms, those basic reforms. In Zambia, they relied on them on TV. The National Broadcasting Corporation was there, but never served everybody. Maybe Honorable Chitika can weigh into that. She can tell us if they were covered by the national broadcaster. That's where the things are messed up here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Schumbach. Speaking to the issue of the need to restore confidence in the electoral process so that people find reason to vote again. And that is the reason the political parties are here today, to say, how do we restore that confidence in the electoral system beyond words to actually take the action? And we have already started talking to the issue of the code of conduct. We've started talking to the issue of what can we practically do beyond this platform and beyond the beautiful words that we are putting across. And thank you for those words. And I would like to ask then, Ms. Mambwana, you had wanted to come in before Dr. Schumbach. I'll give you an opportunity. And this will not be between the two of you. I'm somewhere in the middle, in the virtual space. Thank you.
Do that, and I will not be tempted to do that. I want to deal with the credibility of an election, starting off from voter registration itself. During the last election, we experienced a situation where you find 50 people registered as resident in a single room. The ZEC, even after discovering that there are 50 people who are registered to be resident in a single room in urban areas, could not remove these people from the voters' roll. And it was not possible, of course, for 50 people to be resident on a single room. So this was a way of cheating which took place. So some people who were not resident in a particular constituency were registered as voters in that particular constituency. We do not have a mechanism for uprooting such malpractices. We do not have a mechanism of ensuring that we minimize such malpractices. And we are exercising our minds to say, how do we ensure that our elections are credible? That we have the right people registered to vote in a particular constituency. What can happen right now is that if Party A decides to say, we want to get constituency Y, they will load voters in that particular constituency, even if they have no relationship with that particular, with the specific constituency. We do not have a mechanism of ensuring that only people who have an interest in a particular constituency are registered to vote in that constituency, and in fact to vote in that constituency. So this is a serious issue, because the whole idea about having constituencies is then defeated. The idea of people voting in a particular constituency is because they have a particular interest in that constituency. So they voted that for a candidate in that constituency who is going to ensure that he represents the aspirations of those people. But cheating starts at voter registration. Cheating starts at delimitation. How do we put in place mechanisms to ensure that only people who reside in a particular constituency are then registered to vote in that particular constituency, and the delimitation process is in such a manner that it balances out the interests of rural voters versus the interests of urban voters. And only people with a particular interest in a geographical area then vote in that particular area. So this is an area where we think we need an improvement in our system, because people can decide to cheat, to simply vote in a particular constituency because they want a particular candidate to win in that particular constituency, even if they have no relationship with that particular constituency.
Thank you, Honorable Mangwana, for highlighting those points. So ZEC needs to move towards possibly in the electronic system, or to tap into technology to be able to address some of these things, because these can easily be picked, that there are 50 people residing in this household. there's an abnormal. There were people who were registering using fake addresses or addresses belonging to ZESA power lines, you know, and all those things. So these are some of the things that ZEC needs to be aware of and take action beyond being aware of these things. Can we also speak to the issue of the voters' roll and access to the voters' roll to the political parties, so that some of these things, they can see them ahead of time and raise them with the electoral body? If the parties are only availed the voters' roll a few weeks before, it's difficult for them to do anything about the anomalies that they may pick up, and for ZEC to do anything to address some of these issues. So let us speak to the issue of the voters' roll and access to the parties, in what form the voters' roll can even be given to the parties for them to easily be able to access it and go through it. This is open to any of the panelists again. Any takers? Honorable Mpariwa? Dr. Strike?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you very much for the question on the voters' roll availability to political parties. But also, I think just to go even beyond to the electorate themselves, who are they are the stakeholders. We do that on behalf of the stakeholders. To me, these are the voters who should actually access the voters' roll through the click of a button, like I have said before, the ICT, which is fast moving into the communication world. Zimbabwe is not an exception, and there is also need to actually, even the verification, what we call BVR in the 2018 elections, there is nothing that can stop us from accessing the voters' roll electronically, and we do the thorough, the coming out of the voters' roll through the gadgets or ICT. In fact, it saves time to everyone else will be able to access the voters' roll. But like it is, even if it's then released in a short space of time, many people will not be able to access it. The youth themselves may not even be able to access, because we run the risk of actually marginalizing our own people who are supposed to then vote for us, to be members of parliament, to be councillors, to be anywhere where the election is supposed to give you the mandate to represent them. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Honorable Mpariwa. Technology is being, and we must catch up. And the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission needs also to start moving with the times. A voter's roll that's accessible. I've seen links where I can check if I am registered. But Honorable Mpariwa is also saying, beyond that, why can't I register digitally? And I don't need to come all the way from Plumtree to go to Uganda, or come all the way from Chinoi to go to Harare. But we can have these set up in a digital space, and ZEC can access these, and we can clean it up as we go towards next year. We still have time to be able to do these things. Thank you for that. Any other input from the panelists? Okay, thank you. I will ask Honorable Mangwana, you can go ahead.
Yes, if I may, just come in to say we need to encourage political players to know that elections are not won on the day of the election. They have to invest in securing the voters' roll and ensuring that those who support them are in fact on the voters' roll. In our country, we hear opposition political parties complaining about things which happen on election day, and yet when one is preparing for an election, they must start preparing for an election from the registration process when voters actually register to vote, and the people are not investing in those exercises, in those situations which take place well before the election.
Thank you, Honorable Mangwana. If one is to campaign, they must make sure that their supporters are registered to vote for them, and not make the assumption that whoever is attending their rally is automatically a vote that's counting towards their win. So thank you for reminding us that as the political parties must also take the initiative to mobilize their supporters to register to vote. I'm trying to see if Honorable Chitika is still online from Zambia. I hope she's still online. We have lost her.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Can I just come in?
Yes, Dr. Schumbach, you can proceed.
I want to add to what Honorable Mpariwa said in terms of making voters roll digital. We are in 2021. What we need to accept is that voters roll is a living document. It does not have to move from election to election. People should be able to visit and see their voter registration status. There is need to digitalize the process. There is need for everyone to see that there are no impediments. The moment people struggle to get a voter's roll, we are creating a perception that there's something to hide. If a voter's roll is available in between elections, people will be able to check and verify, and they can see the process of correcting the mistakes. But when we struggle, we have to go to court to get a voter's roll, then people always assume there's something to hide. And that's when they started saying this election is rigged. So, and we know in Zimbabwe, we might like it or not, there's nothing, all organs like ZEC will do without the ruling party's involvement. The technical team in ZEC is appointed by the ruling party. ZBC cannot have its own editorial policy, which goes against the ruling party. And we are here to highlight the challenges that we have to innovate to get to our voters. Whereas there's a national state broadcaster, which is paid and supported by taxpayers' money. We should at least, maybe once a month, we have representatives of political parties, including those from ZANU-PF, calling citizens to register to vote, just calling citizens to register to vote. As he rightly say, elections are won not on election day. But there is an obligation on part of us, the political players, including the government, to ensure that the people get the necessary information. That's where the bigger problem is. The impediment in getting an accurate voter's roll is what inspires people to always think, well, these elections are rigged. And this has to be addressed. We need to ensure that our counterparts in the ruling party walk the talk, because when they say A and there are people on the ground are doing B, people see through that, because people react to actions, not just words. That's all I have to say. I'm sorry, maybe you might think I'm targeting you, Mr. Mangwana, but these are reality. These are reality things which I have to bring. And I've actually texted you and said, if you would want, we can follow up this conversation outside this panel, because the winner from our discussion will be Zimbabwe. It's not Mangwana, Dr. Schumbach. Yes.
Let me just tell Dr. Schumbach that the president set up the platform of Poland to discuss these issues. And these issues are being addressed. We are discussing them in Poland. And if he is willing to join Poland, let him come and join Poland and we'll discuss them. And certainly, if those issues are legitimate, they will be addressed. President Idi Mnangagwa says, I'm a listening president. I will listen and I will take practical measures to ensure that our electoral systems are improved and they are free and fair.
can I just ask? Okay, Madam, can you allow me to ask Mr. Mangwana? You know, there is a statement which came from the president. You said he's a listening president. When he said what happened in Zambia will not happen to Zimbabwe. Do you know what he was talking about? Was that kind of
I ask that Mr. Mangwana does not respond to that because he's not the one who said it.
Okay, thank you. No, he had said the president is listening, and you know, yes. And I said, well, maybe you know.
You guys come back to the meeting.
Sure.
Thank you. So may I then ask that I move to Honorable Chitika. She has a hand up as an indication that she is back. I'll ask her to make a comment, and then I will ask a question that we had wanted to learn from her when I was looking for her earlier. Madam Chitika, you can unmute and proceed. Hello.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you. You can proceed.
Okay. Okay. What I'm saying is that it is interesting that so many things have been said, and it is true. I would agree with a number of speakers concerning the, you know, how do we encourage our, you know, our people to vote. First of all, the processes are very, very critical. The processes are very, very important. We talked about delimitation. It is important that once this exercise is being undertaken, all the stakeholders should be taken on board. And then the government of the day should ensure that the registration period is done in, you know, in good time. And also they should make it a point that the people have access to the registration centers in good time. So they should be able to move out into the villages and capture as many people as, you know, they can possibly, you know, capture. And then in terms of national identity cards, they should also ensure that these, you know, this exercise, you know, is done parallel to the voter registration, so that the would be, or the first voter, you know, population is captured. And then the issue of, I heard somebody, you know, was giving an example of what happened in Zambia. We didn't have access. I confirmed, you know, initially, but that was the time when we had, I had challenges in, you know, in the network. I think it is important, ladies and gentlemen, to understand that the problems that we face as African countries are huge. And as long as we are not convinced that these problems somehow are caused by the electoral, you know, commissions of, you know, various countries, as long as they remain, you know, partisan, we have a situation where whatever you put in as a political party, it will go into the drain. What we need is to ensure that these electoral commissions of Zambia, or electoral commission bodies, you know, their composition should be an area of concern. If we do not get involved as the church, as political parties, as civil society, you know, in the constitution of these, of the members of the, you know, electoral management bodies, it will get us to nothing, because once they become partisan, it is very, very difficult for all these processes to proceed according to the way we would want them to be. But for the Zambian, you know, experience, I would like to say that the churches, and we have a body which comprises of all the political parties in the country, that is the Zambia Center for Inter-Party Dialogue. This body really did a good and commendable job in the last elections, because they were involved, deeply involved with the churches and you know, other civil society. We came up with a, you know, a coalition on the peaceful election in the country, and they did a commendable job. So if we don't get involved as stakeholders, so many things will not be corrected. I think I can end there for now.
Thank you, Honorable Chitika, for sharing that with us. I would like to ask you and put you back on the spot. regarding the issue of results management. How was it done in Zambia, where the opposition parties able to access results? Were they able to track the results from when they moved to the polling center upwards until they go to the national level? How was the Electoral Commission of Zambia ensuring transparency and integrity of the results as they were moving up the chain? Thank you.
Okay. Hello, can I?
You can proceed, madam. You're welcome.
Okay. Initially, the Electoral Commission of Zambia wanted to start misbehaving. I was actually in the, the center, the national center where results were being correlated and also announcements were being made. So initially they wanted to start, announcing these results without, political parties, participating in the elections, confirming that indeed these were the, the results that were coming from various polling stations within the country. So what we did was we took the Electoral Commission of Zambia to task. We actually told them that no election results is going to be announced until we verify with what we have received, because there's a form which is called Gen 20, where all the political parties participating and their agents sign at various, polling stations. And the moment the closing is done, the moment the election is, counted, they all sign before the elections are transmitted into the center, the main center. And that is what we depended on as political parties, because all our agents were sending a picture of, this Gen 20. And what we had and what Electoral Commission had needed to tally. So initially, at first, we were having, conflicting figures until we just put our foot down as all stakeholders that were in that, correlating center, that we cannot announce the results until we are all agreed that indeed, if polling station 1 sent 10,000 voters for candidate A, it should be the same as the Electoral Commission result. So that's how we managed it. Otherwise, if you remember, for those who were, here, there was a point where even about 3 or 4, 5, 6 hours getting into 2 days, into 1.5 days, I think, where the counting of, and announcement of, votes were discontinued. It was because we had to engage the Electoral Commission of Zambia that no one is going to announce any votes until we are all agreed. So what used to happen was that when they're about to announce the vote, the votes, they would call us into another room, and we'll go there and we confirm that indeed the results that have come out of a particular constituency is correct. And that's when they would get down to announce. So that's what we did. It was so, people were so vicious and very aggressive that it was literally impossible for the ECZ to do anything funny.
Thank you, Madam, for elaborating to us that process in the results management chain. I am going to ask
Hello?
Hello, Madam. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for elaborating that process on how the political parties were able to participate in the results management system, working together with the electoral management body. My question now is to Honorable Mpariwa. Having heard how Zambia conducted themselves as far as results management was done, what are the lessons that political parties in Zimbabwe can take away from that? What is it that we can infuse into our system? Because results management is central to how we then perceive the results that are then announced. So this is important for us to reduce the risk of disputed elections or the occurrence of disputed elections, as we have had in the past. What is it that we can do to reduce the opaqueness? It could be done by the political parties. It could be done by ZEC when working with the political parties, or based on the advocacy from the political parties and from civil society. What is it that we can do to make this process as transparent as possible in order to protect the integrity of the results? The other panelists can also be thinking about their responses, but I'll give the opportunity first to Honorable Mpariwa. You're welcome.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, Belinda. And I want to thank Madam Chitika for the experiences and actually to highlight on what happened behind the scenes, because really these are the behind scenes. But perhaps really also to emphasize the point that civil society should be regarded as partners in nation building. With a strong civil society attachment, with strong communication links between political parties, the government of the day, and all the stakeholders, civil society can actually carry out more work in terms of how we can manage the results, pronouncements, how we can actually, we call it defend our vote before it is pronounced. But more importantly, I think there is need to have faith and trust amongst ourselves as political players, and also strong institutions, like I earlier on said, which is not to be doubted in the future. If a dispute has to arise, people have to rely on strong institutions that can be relied upon. That is Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. We should be strong, independent, non-affiliation, without any doubt whatsoever. That people will begin to trust that even if I leave the boxes unattended, they are safe. That trust is to be there. Number 3, there is need for harmony and peace amongst the parties that are contesting. Because when you are then protecting your vote, it should not be the vote for the MDC or Ndonga or what, but it's the vote from the stakeholders, who are the people in this case. And I would want to trust that when Zambia was actually safeguarding the pronouncement of the results of the results management, they did not quarrel amongst themselves, but they trusted the process, that they will actually hold on to the pronouncement, but trusted that they are working for the people in terms of what they've selected, that is putting the axis on who they wanted to be their leader in a transparent manner. I would want also to trust that with such apparatus and that the role of the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission is not doubted in any way, that no one labels anyone. When there's transparency, when there is accountability, when there is faith and trust, then as political parties will have delivered in terms of safeguarding the results as a safe management process in terms of the on behalf of the stakeholders, who are the communities and the constituencies who will have voted. Thank you.
Can I add something?
Thank you, Honorable Mpariwa. You can come in, Dr. Schumbach.
Yeah, sure. I think the key learning from the Zambian elections which should be adopted in Zimbabwe is the Electoral Commission should not unilaterally announce results. The process they put in place where there was verification of the result, which is going to be announced in an agreement comparison. And then when the final result is announced, everyone is in agreement. There's consensus. That's what we need in Zimbabwe. Because the issue of then going to court after the fact to dispute results, that creates all the problems. We saw what was happening in Zambia. When there were disagreements, they would stop announcing and they will go upstairs to discuss. And then later on, after they had agreed, a result which was indisputable was announced. That's what we need in Zimbabwe. That's a key lesson we need to continue to hammer and amplify, that all stakeholders need to sit down in a separate room with the Electoral Commission and agree on one particular result. If there are disagreements, then that result should not be announced until it's clarified. That's a key lesson we learned from Zambia. Thank you, and thank you, Madam Honorable Chitika, for sharing that, because I was a keen follower and I was very impressed with that process. Thank you.
I think.
Thank you. You can go ahead, Honorable Mangwana. Thank you.
Our current electoral system is okay. What we only need to do is to build confidence of the parties by us, the political parties, participating. I've participated in our elections since the year 2000, in almost all of them, either as a player or as a manager of an election. The counting takes place at the polling station.
Yes.
And all the political parties participate in the counting. What we are not doing is tabulating the results from each polling center and then collecting these in the ward first, then in the constituents. If each political party could follow the whole system, participating in counting at the polling station, recording the votes obtained there, look at the votes as they are collected at the ward center, take the same votes to the constituent center, and then compare those with the votes being announced by ZEC. All the disputes we have been having will not be there. There will be no need. But we as political players do not go thoroughly through that route. We tend to say, the election has been stolen. But go back and start counting your votes from the polling station to the ward, to the constituents, and then nationally. All the results are there. But we do not do our work. If you could take all the results down as they are being taken, your agents are there, they've got all the results, put all this together, put a machinery which makes sure that you also tabulate the results as they are being announced and compare them with the results as you get them from your own agents. You still get the same results.
Yeah, Mr. Mang, in Zambia.
Thank you.
Can I just
Dr.
quickly? Sure. Can I just quickly? In Zambia, the political parties did that. They followed the results from polling station, ward, constituent. And when the results went to the Electoral Commission, the Electoral Commission wanted to announce a different result. And that's what I was talking about. They had done everything you have described, but then when the final number was about to be announced, then they realized, no, that's not the number we have. And that's what I was saying, we need that in Zimbabwe. We need to ensure that before they announce, before they are made public, they have been reviewed by all stakeholders and they said, yes, they agree with our numbers.
Sure.
That's what I meant.
Sure, that makes sense.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you. So this also goes to speak to the issue of the political parties willing to work together towards enhancing the electoral process. So it goes beyond them wanting to secure a victory for themselves, but to say we are working together and we are not announcing until we are all agreed.
Yes.
Because the winner is Zimbabwe at the end of the day. And if we then move towards that spirit, I think we're on the right direction. And I'm happy that in this platform, I'm seeing that move towards that kind of direction and that kind of spirit of embracing Zimbabwe as the common vision. Honorable Chitika, you have your hand up. Madam, you can come in. Honorable Chitika, you can unmute and you can come in. Your hand is up. Okay, I think we have a challenge with the internet there. Are you able to come in? Please unmute yourself so that we can hear you. Okay, when you unmute, you will give me an indication, then I'll give you an opportunity to speak. So we have touched on the issue of the importance of ensuring the integrity of the results management system, the counting, protecting the vote, so that there is no announcement either from ZEC or from political parties without an agreement among the parties that this is the vote. And we have all agreed, we have compared all our notes, and this is what is acceptable to all of us. Our tabulations match. My next question, unless if there is another panelist who has a contribution to make on that issue, I don't see any indication or any hands. My next question, this is also directed to all the panelists, is on the issue of women in the electoral process. We follow the Zambian case. We follow the 2018 elections. We see a decrease in women winning elections or parties fielding women. For Zimbabwe in 2018, for the first time with 4 presidential candidates being women. They did not win, but at least they were brave enough to put their names forward. In terms of the parliament seats, we also now we have 31% representation before the recalls, with 31% of women, including the proportional representation. And council, we have 13% women, I think, representation. So the inclusion of women in the electoral process remains an issue that we must work on and we must address. What can the political parties do? I do not want to say women and youth. We will have an opportunity to speak to the youth, but quickly a response on the issue of women. And then I will give another opportunity to respond to the issue of young people. Thank you. Any panelists want to have a go? You can indicate. Thank you. You can go ahead, Honorable Mangwana.
This has been a very difficult year. We, as a political party, started women's emancipation during the struggle itself, where women participated equally with men, even in combat. But coming to independence, we have been trying as a political party to enhance the participation of women. But unfortunately, through first past the post system, you find women tending to support male candidates instead of supporting other women candidates. I do not know the reason why. If you try to bring in a different electoral system, it may bring a different result, which is the proportional representation. And that's the quickest way of bringing about gender balance in the electoral system. But it has also its negatives. It actually brings up a very weak state. It brings up a weak government. You are likely to have coalition governments. You are likely to have majoritarian type of government. And we've been battling. This is why in Zimbabwe, we now have what I would call a hybrid system. We have a first past the post system, which is winner take all. And of course, through that system, it is difficult to achieve gender balance, and you have more men in parliament and in positions of power. Then when you come to the Senate, this is where we adopted a PPRIZ system. And as you can see, there's almost a 50-50 representation of men and women in the Senate because of the electoral system. So really, this has been an issue which we are discussing in the interparty dialogue process. We have not yet come up with an answer, but definitely there are two issues. Should we change the electoral system and adopt proportional representation, in which case then you can make an electoral provision to say you want a zebra system with a woman, then a man, and you can achieve 50-50 representation in that process. But as long as you are adopting an electoral system of first past the post, you have the current situation. But I think that the problem is bigger than simply looking at the electoral system. It is a question of changing society's mindset. How do we ensure that as we live along with life, men and women are treated equally? Women have got confidence in themselves. Men have got confidence in women. How do we ensure that society respects women in the same manner it respects men? So this is the biggest question we have. Is it the electoral system alone? I do not think so. We need to have education on gender from grade 1. And we need our education system, our social support systems to accept the issue of gender representation in all facets of life. If you just look at the electoral system, it may not provide an answer. That is why even if you adopt a correct electoral system in our second chamber, in the Senate, the moment you introduce first past the post, then women are not represented. We have not solved the problem. We need to solve the problem in a bigger scale, in a better way than simply tinkering around with the electoral system itself.
Thank you, Honorable Mangwana, for those points and for highlighting to us that also the parties are in discussion around the issue of increasing women's political participation and challenging us to also go beyond just the electoral system, but say how do we also change the mindset of the voter to appreciate that the woman can also represent equally as the man. There is always a discussion where we say, let's put women in here. There are undertones of people saying, we want quality women, but that discussion doesn't arise when we are talking about men. And I'm happy that in the contribution that has been brought by Honorable Mangwana, that is not even an issue. We are not comparing. We are saying, what can we do to ensure that there's an appreciation that women have equal capacities as men in representing constituencies, and what can we do to get the constituencies to appreciate this and vote? Thank you. I will give the opportunity to Honorable Mpariwa, then I'll come to you, Dr. Schumbach. Honorable Mpariwa? Sure. Yes.
Oh, thank you, Belinda, and I want to thank Honorable Mangwana for his input, where he has touched, I think, a lot of the points that I had in mind, but perhaps really also to beef up to say that yes, we have actually gone below what we thought we would have had in Parliament as women representation, and hence you see that we now have actually voted in where we will have 50-50 in terms of local authorities, to say that we will have 50% women in local government. Number three, I think, let me begin by saying that you will see that the environment out there in terms of women's participation in the political field is not leveled towards women. I'll take you take the culture, the campaign, and the exposure of a woman who is campaigning to be maybe a councillor or a member of parliament, walking into a space where the social gatherings, what the names will be called around that woman. You find that most of the women, if they are mostly married women, they will have problems in terms of then associating themselves to wanting to stand for office. But also in terms of resources, there is need for resource mobilization in terms of supporting the women to stand in communities so that when they go out there, they will equal in terms of resourcing their campaign teams that they use, the women even covering the communities that they would want to stand for. How do we then undo such a deficit in terms of getting the women so that we can also attain the 50-50 is actually the protocols are now demanding in the Zimbabwe, not in exception. There is need for us to actually have women only constituencies where women contest themselves in constituencies, so that when you get party Ndonga, party ZANU-PF, party MDC, if a woman wins, we know that constituency is taken by a woman. And we need really, because I am a Secretary General of a political party, we have begun to work around that we need actually to push women to come forward to bring their CVs. Even when we talk our doctrine in terms of political parties, we need to be attractive enough to get those women on board. But more importantly, I think it's also to do, say, a woman. You mentioned in your highlights to say we had women who stood up for presidential and any other spaces. I think to encourage women to support one another so that anyone who stands up to stand for an office, we are the majority. I worry that we are 52% of the population, and there is no way we can lose if we rally behind one another. We'll get the 50-50 both at parliamentary level, at local government, even anywhere else. So I think it's also a question of support. It's also a question of information. You go to the rural areas, they must know ABCD. Because when you say gender, many people get it wrong to say when you say gender, you are talking about a woman. No, you are talking about a man and a woman. But it's equality in terms of spaces that we want to occupy, because the other gender is actually trailing behind. Thank you, Belinda.
Thank you, Honorable Mpariwa, and for elaborating how we can take this to the local level. The 52% is not translating to a vote for women, and we need to be able to turn all that over so that women can start increasing their demographic dividend and tapping into it. So thank you for that. I will ask that we use the chat to put our questions. After when Dr. Schumbach speaks, I will then open the floor. Edmo, I know you have your hand up, and Honorable Chitika, you have your hand up. I will give Dr. Schumbach an opportunity to speak into this issue. And then may I see the hands from the floor? Some may also want to make use of the chat to participate in this discussion. Thank you. Dr. Schumbach, over to you.
Yeah, sure thing. I think most of the important points have been touched by Honorable Mpariwa and Honorable Mangwana. Yes, women need to be encouraged. But we also need to do an inquiry. Why do women advance male candidates? Why do women fail to step up in numbers? I think the answer lies in the historical way we held elections. Elections were largely violent, and women felt, well, because this is now a mano a mano would rather stay home. And especially when it comes to issues of violence, the husband will say, well, you have children, stay at home. The environment has changed significantly on the ground, but once a mindset is set and a narrative has been set, it's very difficult to deconstruct it. The trauma from past elections where anyone, candidates or managers of candidates were victimized violently and become things which were shared in public. It's likely discouraged women thinking that, well, you need to be strong. I have engaged women in different professions, trying to encourage them to take up senior positions. And some say, yeah, you die for nothing. Why would people associate death with participating in a democratic process? It's because these things happened before. So just like when we're encouraging people to vote, we also need to encourage everyone to participate in this democratic process, especially the women, assuring them that this is just as good as when you are doing your gardening, that no harm will befall you. We have to rebuild the trust in our citizenry, because what happened in the past, it's still carried in some other people's minds, and they use that to stay away. That's very, very, very important, that we try to communicate clearly that our elections are no different than elections in other countries where they are participatory in a democratic way. We need to help remove the fear. One of the reasons is fear. It's not that people are not capable, women are not capable. Like the moderator said, it's not about the quality of women, because when it comes to quality, it also applies to male. It's about the fear some people still carry in their minds. And it's incumbent on us to ensure that we've done more to assure them that no harm will befall them. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Schumbach, for that. I'm going to ask now, Honorable Chitika, you had your hand up, and anyone from the floor who wants to come in and contribute. I see Dr. Strike has finally managed to log on. I will come to him after Honorable Chitika. iPhone, is it possible to rename yourself so that we can know who you are? Honorable Chitika, I think we have lost her. All right. Okay. When she comes back, she will join. Dr. Strike Nkandla, before we lose you, may we have your contributions? Then I will take your hand, Edmo. My apologies. Dr. Strike Nkandla is one of our panelists and has been failing to give us his contributions because of poor network. Please come in, Dr. Nkandla. Lingakhuluma siyalizwa. Dr. Nkandla, we can see you, but we cannot hear you. Your microphone is unmuted. Please say something so that we can hear you. Okay, I will give Edmo a chance. Well, Dr. Nkandla, you're free to interrupt once you get your connection sorted. Edmo, please, I can't see you. You've put down your hand. You are free to speak. Yes.
Thank you very much, moderator. Good day. I hope you can hear me. Hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You can proceed.
Thank you very much. This text here from National Electoral Reform Agenda NERA. This discussion is important, but I want to feel that the crux of the matter is not being dealt enough. Justice is not being done to the real issue on the table. We have observed over time, yes, that women continue to be marginalized or marginalized themselves. Women continue to or refrain or desist from getting involved. But the fundamental question we should all together dissect with the candidness it deserves is why? What sits at the center of this problem? Give in just 3 points in terms of my own analysis of why this pattern is come to be over time, post the armed struggle. I will start with the design and structure, the nomenclature for political parties. The compartmentalization where you find Women League, Youth League in the main wing is a design which did not do much for women, because a few and locked there, you understand? And there was this representational basis or belief that we are being represented through the Women's League. So if opportunities are available, the Women's League must say something first. You see? So women were created, were locked in a particular section called the Women's League. That compartmentalization must fall. Secondly, it is the institutionalization of women empowerment that failed. Right from after independence, we always said we wanted to enhance and promote women empowerment, women participation. We wanted to entrench women inclusion, but it is failing. It has been failing. The question is why? Maybe that is answered with my final submission. The social construction of the role of women in the society. I want to submit respectively that the society is taking long, or it is taking forever to come to accept that women are equal enough to contest in these political spaces. Why? Because the society believes that politics is not, or the electoral space is not a safe space for women. This is not an unfounded basis. If you do a vulnerability analysis of women, a vulnerability analysis that is gender, that is demographic based, you see that young people and women are a bit vulnerable. So what we see today is the cumulative total of what the society has been through over time. And it's time we radicalize our approach to women inclusion. I would, before I raise my submission, contribute that let us look into the way political parties are structured and designed. Let us move away from compartmentalization, where women are locked in spaces designed for them, maybe to appease them so that they feel like they're being represented or they're being included. But in fundamental issues, they're being left out. I will rest my case, Madam Moderator, at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Edmund. And you raise very critical points that also resonate with the previous submissions. That the social construction of the role of women remains a hindrance to how women are perceived as they put themselves forward for the vote. And the issue of the Women's League and the Youth Week, how this impedes their full participation in the main arena of the politics within the party. Thank you for that. I will give this opportunity to Mundia. Sorry if I pronounce your name wrong. Mandia or Mundia?
It's Mundia. Thank you for.
Mundia, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moderator, for the opportunity. I've got few questions that I raised here. The first one is going to Honorable Mangwana, where he highlighted on the issue of having many people in the area registered as voters in single room. So my question to him is, it's a noble idea that people registered in the area of residence, but we have a situation where ZANU-PF members too reside in Harare, and they are going to the rural areas to contest as members of parliament. How are they going to address that? Especially for the people who have got dual residence. As African, we have a village and a town. So you can choose where you want to be registered. How are they going to address that? And then the second question is on the issue of women participation in the political arena. Yes, indeed, it is. Indeed, you mentioned about the kind of language that have been used. Especially, I'll give an example on Dr. Coupe. We have had a lot of insults showered on that woman, and no one has brought to account so that we set a precedent of wrong behavior during election. So my question there on addition to the women participation that is limited, I also want to bring an issue of minority tribes. I'm a Tonga too. This one is an issue that has to be addressed too. If I am a Tonga, I am in Harare, you will discover that you will not be given a political contest space because you are from Binga and because you reside in Harare. I've never heard anyone from Binga contesting as an MP in the urban areas. And those are areas that need to also address apart from women. The third one, the code of conduct.
I hope you're rounding to a close so that we can give an opportunity to the panelists to respond to.
Am I on? Hello? On playing up, I think the bit of reading by here because cut out most of it. No. If can on just render.
Dr. Mkandla, can you hear us? Dr. Mkandla, sorry, Mundia, you were still talking, but may I allow Dr. Mkandla before he proceed? Give us your contribution if you can hear us. Okay. We could hear you. Kindly proceed to make your contribution.
Now
we can hear you. Please proceed with your contribution. We can hear the background noise. Okay. We will have to mute you, Dr. Mkandla, while you sort that out. I will now ask Honorable Chitika to, maybe before she comes in, there is a late Matabo who wants to speak, and then Honorable Chitika can respond to the questions and contributions that she will make, and I will ask the other panelists to then contribute on the last question that we have. Matabo. Kindly unmute yourself. Okay. When you are able to unmute, you will let me. I will give this opportunity to Honorable Chitika to speak to us on the issue at hand. Please go ahead, Madam.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I would like to say that the issues that affect women participation in the governance of nations, have been, elaborated by the other speakers. But my addition would be that, despite the fact that, there are historical issues that, make it impossible for, women to participate effectively. But women themselves are, a problem, if I may put it that way, for lack of a better word. Women fear failure. I've been in the political, field for a long time, and you will find that when women try once, they just want to go back to their, to their kitchens and forget about everything else. And yet men, can fail 5, 6 times and they will still get what they want. So I think we need, programs that will be able to encourage women, because even the government, have not made it any easier for women to participate in, in the governance of this nation. I'll give you an example of what happened in Zambia. Where fees, denomination fees for one to participate in the elective, positions were raised more than 200%. Women were expected to pay something like 10,000, 13,000, and it's a lot of money. And you know that women struggle in terms of finances. They are vulnerable. So it was very difficult for most political parties in Zambia to raise the numbers of women unless where political parties came in and assisted. And, the other issue is that for me, the only way that women are going to be assisted and helped, to take part in the governance of nations is by, constitutional reforms. Constitutional reforms in the sense that we need to have a mixed member, proportion representation in these nations, because it is very difficult if we don't have the proportional, proportion representation. It will be very difficult for women to get into, the field and compete effectively with men who have money and men who can use women against women. So it is very, very difficult. So my contribution is that despite our many challenges as women, the many challenges that we face, government should also make it at least, much easier for the women to get involved in what is happening. I think I'll end there. And also the issue of violence. The issue of violence. Women fear violence. So as long as they are.
I think we have lost Madam Chitika, Honorable Chitika. I will read a comment from the chat. The hostile political playing field in Zimbabwe discourages effective participation of women in electoral processes. In Matabeleland the post-independence Gukurahundi experiences greatly contribute to that, and women suffered a lot during that period. Okay, may I ask also that we rename ourselves so that it's easy to see who is contributing at any point. My last question, my last question to the panelists is: Zimbabwe is a very youthful population. I think it's one of the youngest. That does not translate to youth participation or youth representation in the elections. We are not seeing the numbers in parliament. We are not seeing the numbers in decision-making processes. We're seeing the numbers, yes, in the youth wing, but as Ed Moore observes, that is like playing in the periphery and not in the main wing what is it that political parties can do to increase youth participation in political processes? And we can take a few minutes from the panelists to respond to this. Then I'll give you 1 minute each after your responses to say your final words.
Well, the future.
You can go ahead, Honorable Mamang.
Can I come in?
Yes, you can go ahead.
We in our party in ZANU-PF, we have realized that the future of our politics belongs to the young. The political structures themselves, and I tend to agree with I can't remember who it is, who has said that the compartmentalization of our politics makes it difficult for certain segments of our society participating in politics. For example, when the Youth League was created, it was supposed to be a system which encourages youth representation. But then with time, what happens is that the youth get confined to the Youth League, and the youth then get confined to seats allocated to the Youth League. In the main body, the youth then don't participate. The structure.
Sorry, Honorable Mangwana. Dr. Strike Nkandla, sorry, I'll give you an opportunity. Thank you for rejoining. I'll give you an opportunity after Honorable Mangwana has spoken. Please go ahead, Honorable Mangwana.
We need to restructure the main political bodies of our political parties to ensure that we increase the participation of the youth. The Constitution is very clear. Anyone who is below the age of 35 is a youth. So if we accept that definition, most of us in that politics were in that category called the youth. I don't see the reason why we are not having so many people who are aged between 25 and 35, for example, in our parliament. And certainly we have this challenge and we have to address it as we move towards the next election to say, in the main body of our politics, how do we encourage participation of the young people? And we will need to really look into the eyes for ourselves as leaders and say, what should we do to increase participation of the youth, both men and women?
Thank you, Honorable Mangwana. Dr. Strike Nkandla, you can come in if you can hear me and make your submission. Dr. Nkandla, we could hear you when you were speaking. Please speak louder and we can hear you. There seems to be a problem with this microphone. I will have to ask Honorable Mpariwa to come in the meantime. Honorable Mpariwa, you're welcome.
Thank you, Belinda. I'll begin by saying that the youth are not clueless about politics. The youth are not even clueless about what they want tomorrow. The youth are not also clueless about the direction in which they want to. And also, I think I want to thank Honorable Mangwana when he said the youth are leaders of tomorrow, but they are also leaders today as well. I will explain why. We have made a deliberate attempt as a party to allocate a quota for the youth. In a deliberate attempt to have programs designed for the youth. While they mingle around and do their activities, they will be able to identify talent amongst themselves. You know that when it comes to even ICT gadgets, the youth are on the forefront. At home, I have a youth who is 17. It's amazing because that youth is the one who teaches me even when I have a new cell phone on what to do. They are so intelligent and they know. They are good observers. Hence, when we do even our campaigns, the youth are on the forefront. We have also a youth assembly in the party where we have had the members of parliament from the youth wing. The chairperson of the National Youth Assembly is a member of parliament. She's a chairperson of a very powerful portfolio committee on environment, and she's a woman. We have also made the same deliberate attempt to have councillors as they use. Most of our councillors are very young in our party. The youngest member of parliament in parliament comes from my political party. And once you continue to identify their talents, like we are doing, and design programs that attract them, they will multiply. I hope and trust that even come the next election, we'll be able to have even more than a quota allocation for both local government and the parliament. It's unfortunate that when the SIBRA, the Senate, it actually marginalizes the youth because of the age limit. But we have tried as a party to design programs and to work with the youth and include them because they need also to copy what we are doing. But I want to assure you that yes, we have the youth, but we need to train them, good behavior, to be peace builders, and to emulate the good behaviors where others are behaving the way we appreciate as a nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mpariwa, and thank you for leading in getting young people to Parliament. At least the youngest person comes from your party. Now we need more young person in competition for who is the youngest. I will read from the chat. 2 issues with women facing for getting to political office: stigma from the community, political violence. Once there is violence, women decide to leave the harsh competition. And then on youth involvement is very clear in political party documents, but implementation is an uphill task to field them into political office, worse for youthful girls and women. And then another comment: how can security agents be completely excluded from the electoral process? They are a threat to democracy. How can the electoral conduct be legislated? Ban campaigning by denouncing others or parties must only be allowed to speak about themselves. So no speaking about others. If Zimbabwe is a youthful nation, then the power is in their hands. Youth must get into politics in large numbers. More than 50% of the National Assembly seats and local government seats must be taken up by female and male youth. The old guard must be relegated to the Senate. Okay, I will give this opportunity to Dr. Maxwell Schumbach. Thank you. You can go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Someone has written a comment that's on documents. People pledge to promote the youth, but the issue is on implementation. And I think as individual political parties, we should be able to outline our policies towards that. Like what Honorable Mpariwa has done, even Honorable Mangwana talked about their NPF from during the war. As in ZimFest, Zimbabwe People First. We act as we talk. My VP, Vice President, is a youth. Our Secretary General is a youth. The party spokesperson is a youth. The list is endless. We believe in what we tell the people, that we're a platform for fresh ideas. The youth have innovative ideas where the elderly bring wisdom. That combination is what Zimbabwe needs. We need fresh ideas to turn around the country. We have normalized the abnormal. where people are accepting a standard of life which other nations reject. Other nations would reject violently, but we have accepted. All the things which are happening in our country are unacceptable. We need the youth because they have a future. It's their future which they see, which is hopeless. I've talked to some people in their late 30s. We have never touched their payslip, never been formally employed. They're struggling, able-bodied people. And as we continue to normalize the abnormal, that's what's obtaining in Zimbabwe is normal. The more us elders think we are the stakeholders. In reality today, the stakeholders are the youth. That's why in ZimFest we felt that the person who comes after me as the VP should be a youth, and a female too. She's a female youth. We walk the talk. And I'm happy to hear others say what they're doing. We're a platform for fresh ideas, fresh legs, untainted, clean, and fresh. And we are here to promote the youth. And we're happy if other organizations are doing the same, because it's their future which is being destroyed, or their future which needs to be rebuilt. In Zambia, there was a slogan, "Bali will fix it." We are tired. The youth are tired. Basically, they are tired. And if they don't mobilize on the fact that the system is not working for them, then we will see the issues they raise every day being part of the 2028 campaign too. So enough is enough for the youth, and that's enough for them to mobilize. Those are my final words, and thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Schumbach. I will give an opportunity to each of our panelists to give us their parting shots. Thank you to Dr. Schumbach. We've had his parting shots. I will take a minute for each of our panelists to give us their parting shots as we round up. Honorable Mangwana, you can come in.
To appeal to my Zimbabweans to remain positive and to remain confident about their future in the hands of the party which liberated them, which has got their future in its hands. ZANU-PF has the capacity to reform itself into the party of the future. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mangwana. Honorable Chitika, you can give us your parting shots. Honorable Chitika, can you hear me? While you unmute, I'll give Honorable Mpariwa an opportunity. Honorable Mpariwa.
Thank you very much. I want to thank you for this opportunity of interacting. It shapes the future. It gives us wisdom and vision as people who are preparing for an election come 2023. But perhaps to share with my colleagues that elections should not divide us because they come and go. More importantly, what puts us together is that we are all Zimbabweans. We are in offices where we have a contract with the people. It's the people who put people in positions. And at times, when you don't make it, we need to accept that it's time to go. I want to appreciate what Elizabeth has said, Chitika. She's my friend, so I'll call it confidently Elizabeth, that there is time to say, I think I'm done. So I want to appreciate and thank you very much for this opportunity to interact and share the wisdom and practices, best practices. We will take them home so that we can also implement and practice them in our various departments. Let me hasten to say I'm a Secretary General of a political party in Zimbabwe, the only woman Secretary General in the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Mpariwa. Flying our flag there. We hope next time when we meet, we'll have more women SGs. And I would like to give this opportunity to Honorable Chitika. Dr. Mkandla, please get ready after Honorable Chitika to give us your final parting shots.
Oh, thank you, Belinda. Before I actually go off, I would like to say thank you. This has been very interactive, but before I, say my last words, I would like to say that youths, the political parties should ensure that youths are not used as, political tools for violence. They should be told that they are an effective component in the development of our nations. And as political parties, we should ensure that we have policies that favor the youth. And for us as a party, those policies have actually attracted a number of youths. For instance, my deputy is a 30-year-old young man who is doing very, very well, and I will not be too shy to deposit, the experience that I have in this young man, because he is showing a lot of potential. And then as political parties, we should ensure that our strategic plans, designed with programs that promote or favor the youth. And also, I heard somebody say that we need to also blend in, the youth and the old, so that we are able to have a smooth transition. And then lastly, I would like to say that to our friends in Zim, as you go to the elections, ensure that no one loses life because of an election. Just ensure that no one loses life because of an election. I think that is the most honorable thing to do. You can win without violence. So I think it is important that as nations, as political parties, we insist that life is sacred and we should not lose it because of an election. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Chitika, and we thank this digital space that has enabled us to travel to Zambia without being there. Like we were talking about technology and adapting, this is the arena that we find ourselves in. Dr. Strike, I'll give you an opportunity to say a few words as we close. You'll be the last speaker of the day. You can go ahead.
Now, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam Belinda. Now, the first thing I wanted to say before I lose the opportunity is that we seem to assume that if Zambia can do it, Zambia can do it. It's not automatic, because in the beginning, Zambia had Kenneth Kaunda, who was prepared to fight it out with Chiluba and hand over when the time. So the tradition of handovers in Zambia is established, even if in between the problems and violence crop in, which in Zimbabwe, of course, was multiplied many times over. Secondly, is the issue that I heard, which is that with that we fight in by-elections and ensure that somehow we spar with the ruling party head to head. It is not so easy either, if you consider what has happened in the to run away from power in 15, also to run for his life. So this is not a life that we can have, something of use. And in our part, because young people are eager to play their part, but of course, we have a party that is over 50 years old. Therefore, the real stalwarts are the old ones. And we have a challenge of how to make sure that young people get involved in a meaningful way. Even unemployment and the exodus to South Africa, there are many challenges which we have to overcome in order to ensure an even playing field which can allow the youth to play their part. And also women. I heard someone talk about women and the need to ensure that women are not faced by violence because of politics. That is extremely important because women have not only been abused, they are also left with all the problems when the people engage in politics, when the youth and the men engage in politics. The women have to ensure that the households survive and that the women, the children are protected from violence. So there are many elements which we have to face as a country. Last but not least is the issue of avoiding core issues, apart from economic problems, apart from underdevelopment and so on. There are still outstanding issues. Dr. Schumbach will know that when we were dealing with the coalition of Democrats, one of the issues, the elephant in the room, was issues like Kukura, which is less than 40 years old. But in this country, we behave as if a whole genocide is water under the bridge. So we have problems. We are storing up problems for the future. National unity is far from what Zambia did. I know, of course, Zambia had problems at the beginning. They want to vote that way, where the current president comes from, the Tonga, Ila, and the Lenje were marginalized at some stage, although they still had important politicians. At some during the time of Simon Kapwego. But somehow, Kenneth Kaunda tried to make Zambians feel they all mattered, they were all Zambians. Here, it does not work like that. Even marginalization and discrimination is enshrined to the extent that some people think that if you are coming from Bulawa, you must be partially lazy or not having enough initiative. And of course, there's the issue of the whole country being deprived of its resources. This is the only country that I know of in this region where you can say we do not know what happened to $15 billion, not bond, but dollars, US dollars, from Chiaz or from the diamond mines. Now, so the issue of corruption, which affects everywhere, is worse where there is underdevelopment. So I'm sorry that I missed a lot of things, but somehow we have to say that come 2023, the issues are there and they're different from Zambia. There are lessons from Zambia, but the most important thing about lessons is that you can, unless you are copying from someone's slate, you cannot reproduce the lessons from someone else. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Strike Mkandla, for those parting shots. And we are happy that you were finally able to join with us, although it was at the end, but you have given us a lot of things to think about as we leave this meeting. Lots of the outstanding issues that we have spoken into that we must go and work on in order to consolidate, strengthen, and deepen our democracy. As a parting shot, I'll read from the chart. In politics, we should have, I want to read from the chart. We are already in election mode, and each of us has a duty to shape our country. And rightly put, no one should lose life on account of elections. I think that's those are the words that I want to leave us with. No one should lose life. No one should sacrifice anyone's child or anyone's mother or anyone's father on account of elections. This is for Zimbabwe. It is not for any party. It's not for personal gain. If we view it and work towards it because it is for Zimbabwe, then we are on the right path. In 2023 is the year in which we will also experience these changes. And we can, for once, as Dr. Strike Mkandla says, Zimbabwe can work towards one country, one nation, to have one feeling, the feeling of oneness together, which is currently missing. So with those words, ladies and gentlemen, let me thank our panelists for taking time to come and share with us their thoughts, opening themselves up to us. We've asked questions, they have spoken their hearts, they've spoken their party positions. This has been a very insightful and well-meaning debate, or conversations rather. It wasn't even a debate. We're having conversations amongst our political parties and ourselves to say, how do we make Zimbabwe better? And this has been a very important meeting in as far as laying the foundation for moving this conversation forward amongst the political parties. So allow me to thank you. Thank you to the organizers of this meeting. We hope for more such platforms. Time is not enough to have these conversations. So we hope for more such platforms where we can engage across the board in a way in which we build each other as we build Zimbabwe together. Thank you to the participants. We have been together for over 2 hours, going to 3 hours, and you've faithfully been in the meeting, listening in and putting in your contributions. As these conversations continue, we look forward to continue interacting with you. So thank you very much. We will see you. We'll see you again on the other side. Stay safe, mask up, sanitize, social distance, and let's go and get vaccinated. Thank you so much.